So year one under Brent Venables did not go as planned for Oklahoma. The Sooners entered the year with high expectations, started the season ranked number 9 in the country, started 3-0, rose to number 6 in the country, and then collapsed, losing 3 straight games and ultimately ending the season 6-7 for their first losing season since 1998. But we're here to tell you that things will be very different in year 2 under Brent Venables. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we break down everything you need to know for Oklahoma football, breaking down and predicting their schedule and record for this upcoming season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country, beating out over 80% of the national analysts and handicappers each of the last 5 years. You do not want to miss out on that offer. Guaranteed money right in your pocket this football season. Also, don't miss out on our Patreon account. Exclusive college football content over there year-round. We would love your guys' support over there to continue to grow our Patreon. Join our Patreon wall of fame that we already have a couple of guys doing already, and take advantage of some exclusive content that won't be posted anywhere else except for Patreon. So let's dive into Oklahoma. Let's dive into some Sooner football here. This is a team that, again, when you look at the schedule and what happened last year, could have been a drastically different season. Oklahoma could have met expectations, right? They had 5 one-possession losses last year. 4 of those 5 by 3 points. 4 losses by a field goal, including their bowl game against Florida State. The offense really wasn't the issue. Averaged 32.8 points per game, over 470 yards per game. The offense was great. And now they're bringing back 7 starters with Dillon Gabriel at quarterback leading the charge, threw for over 3,100 yards and 25 touchdowns last year, and a loaded offensive line to go along with that. Do have to replace Eric Gray at running back. Do have to replace a handful of receivers. But you have to keep in mind, Oklahoma also attacked the transfer portal extremely hard this offseason. Venables bringing in 18 transfers, just going to town in that transfer portal. Offense, I think, is going to be just fine. The defense, that was the shock, right? Brent Venables, one of the best defensive minds in the game, comes in, and the Oklahoma defense gives up 30 points per game and over 460 yards per game. That was a shock. No one really saw that coming. It's going to be different this year. 6 starters back on that side of the ball. A lot of transfers across the board. Defensive line looks to be a lot better. The Sooners' defense as a whole will look more like a Brent Venables defense that we were so used to seeing during his time at Clemson, even back slightly during his days at Oklahoma. You take a look at their schedule, Oklahoma benefits from a heck of a schedule. I mean, really, this is so favorable to the point where you could see the Sooners kind of live up to those expectations and get back to contending for a Big 12 title, maybe even a playoff berth. They avoid Kansas State, who's kind of been their kryptonite the last few years. They avoid Baylor, who would certainly give them a run for their money. It's a very easy schedule, and we do have them starting the year at 3-0. Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, I really don't expect any of those teams to give the Sooners much of a fight. So just like last year, Oklahoma will find themselves undefeated through 3 games. They kick off Big 12 conference play on the road at Cincinnati, and that's a game they can't afford to overlook. Cincinnati is one of those teams this year where I'm not expecting too much out of them, but this will be the Bearcats' first ever Big 12 game. First game as a member of the Big 12, at least Big 12 conference game. They're going to be hyped. Nipper Stadium is going to be rocking. Oklahoma's going to be walking into a hostile territory as Cincinnati tries to get themselves. They could be looking at a 4-0 start, a 3-1 start, but regardless, start off 1-0 in conference play. It's a monumental moment for this program. So Oklahoma certainly has to be careful, but the Sooners own the significant, and I mean significant, offensive edge. Cincinnati's offense is going to be downright awful this year. Emory Jones, the quarterback, don't have faith in him. Only 3 starters back, don't have faith in that. It's going to be a rough go-around offensively. Oklahoma owns that edge. Defensively, Cincinnati, you can make the argument, owns the edge, but I have faith in Brent Venables to do the job there, especially by week 4. I'm going to give them the win at Cincinnati. I really am. I just don't see Oklahoma going on the road and losing here. They were able to win a couple big road games last year. Early in the year last year, went on the road to Nebraska and dominated that game. I think they can do a similar thing to Cincinnati. The road environment won't faze them. They go back home to take on Iowa State in a series that has lately been pretty close. Iowa State and Oklahoma have had some pretty close matchups in recent years. That wasn't the case last year necessarily. Oklahoma winning over the Cyclones 27-13. They've won 3 straight games over Matt Campbell's squad, including that 2020 Big 12 championship game. Being back home in Norman, I feel really confident about Oklahoma winning this game. Iowa State is certainly more experienced. The offense should be a lot better than they were last year. The defense is going to be just as strong, if not better. I would expect it to be another relatively low-scoring game. I don't think either team is going to put up a whole lot of points in this one, but home field advantage plays a big role here. At Cincinnati, maybe not so much. For Oklahoma against Iowa State, certainly will. The Sooners win, and just like that, they are 5-0. So already off to a better start than they were last year. Looking really good, maybe a top 15 team as they head in to the last Red River Showdown, at least in the Big 12. Oklahoma and Texas in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl, the Red River Rivalry, Red River Showdown, whatever you want to call it. Last meeting between these two teams as members of the Big 12. So it's going to be a very historic and very emotional game. It always really is one of the best rivalries in all of college football. Last year, the game was a major letdown. Texas absolutely mopped the floor with the Sooners, beating Oklahoma 49-0. Granted, the Sooners did not have Dylan Gabriel. They were pretty shorthanded, Gabriel getting hurt the week prior. But regardless, that still is no excuse for Texas putting up what it was over like 600 yards of offense on this Oklahoma defense. So yeah, the offense was terrible. Oklahoma only throwing for 39 yards in the game, but the defense didn't do themselves any favors either. This year, I expect the game to be a lot closer. It's going to be much more competitive soon. Everybody's healthy. But I like Texas still. I still like Texas to beat the Sooners. This Texas team, guys, we say it every year, they're going to be good, they're going to be good. I actually think this could be the case this year. The offense is loaded. Quinn Ewers looked great in this game last year, looked great when he was healthy last year as a whole. The offense returns practically everybody. That Texas defense, severely underrated. And I like Steve Sarkisian's squad to go into Dallas and get this game done. I think they're going to get the win here, even though it's going to be much closer than a 49-0 type of game. Oklahoma's at least going to score this year, I'll give you that. But the Sooners take their first loss of the year against Texas right before their bye week, so they enter the halfway point at 5-1. Coming out of the bye week, the schedule still remains pretty easy. If you're really looking at it, they come out of the bye and take on UCF in what's going to be the Dylan Gabriel game. The Dylan Gabriel reunion game, because remember, Gabriel used to be the quarterback at UCF and ultimately transferred to Oklahoma. So this is going to be a fun, again, kind of emotional game for him, emotional game for maybe both programs as well. But, across the board, it's kind of an interesting game, right? The first ever meeting between Oklahoma and the Knights. So I kind of wish this game was at UCF. I think it would be a really cool atmosphere. UCF getting to welcome home Dylan Gabriel, hopefully with a standing ovation for what he did for that program. But this is also a game that I could see a lot of points being scored. Because while the Sooners offense should be firing on all cylinders, especially off that week of rest, UCF's will be the same way. The offensive mind of Gus Malzahn versus the defensive mind of Brent Venables, it's going to make for a heck of a game and a heck of a showdown. But ultimately, Dylan Gabriel does get revenge over his former team. Sooners beat UCF at home, and just like that, they clinched bowl eligibility, 6-1. They've already matched last year's win total just about 7 games into the year. So obviously looking a lot better. I think the offensive fireworks continue the next week. What else would you expect really in the Big 12, right? Big 12's known for their offense, not so much for their defense. So you could see a high-scoring game between Oklahoma and UCF on October 21st. Could see another high-scoring game when the Sooners travel to Lawrence to take on Kansas, and what's going to be a battle between two great offenses. Last year, it was a shootout. Oklahoma beating the 19th-ranked Jayhawks 52-42 with over 1,100 yards of offense between the two teams, 701 yards of offense coming from the Sooners in that game. So again, it was unbelievable, just the back and forth of that game. And Oklahoma getting a much-needed win last year over a very good Kansas team. And this year it's going to be about the same. Kansas is loaded offensively. Jalen Daniels should be back fully healthy. He's looking good. They practically return everybody offensively, but the Kansas defense is still very suspect. You can make that same argument for Oklahoma, even though I think they're going to have the significant edge defensively. Right now, I don't think Kansas, you can speak for Kansas having much of a home field advantage. The Sooners have not lost at Kansas since 1997. So between what could be a high-scoring game, a back-and-forth shootout, I go with the team that I think can get the most defensive stops or make the biggest play defensively. And right now, that is Oklahoma. Sooners beat Kansas, and they're 7-1 right now as they enter the month of November. So we're talking not just potential Big 12 title here, but maybe even college football playoff for the Sooners. They keep the offense rolling. They keep the good times rolling in Bedlam, where they will defeat Oklahoma State. They beat the Cowboys 28-13 last year. Oklahoma has dominated this series for the last 2 decades, winning 17 of the last 20 meetings over their in-state rival. Again, even though it's on the road, Oklahoma State will have home field advantage, but the Sooners are going to show up. They're going to show out. The fans are going to be there, right? Those in-state rivalry games, those fans typically show up for those. I look at Oklahoma State. I don't have a whole lot of faith in their offense, especially. Questions at the quarterback position. Alan Bowman, Garrett Rangel, none of them gives me warm, fuzzy feelings, especially if Bowman can't stay healthy like he's been unable to do for the majority of his career. The defense was downright awful last year. Started off kind of strong and then kind of tanked down the rest of the stretch, especially after that 48-0 loss to Kansas State. So Oklahoma State, I don't have very high expectations for this year, and I just don't see them having enough across the board to beat Oklahoma. I think the Sooners own the edge in every category except for home field advantage. That's not going to be enough to get it done for their in-state rival. The Sooners beat Oklahoma State, and they beat West Virginia the next week, even though they lost to the Mountaineers last year 23-20, a game we did predict correctly. So before you attack me for some losses here, keep in mind we did pretty good last year predicting Oklahoma's schedule. 23-20 loss last year against West Virginia in Morgantown, but now at home with revenge on their mind, riding the high from Bedlam. I just don't see it happening, although Sooners do need to find a way to shut down the run. West Virginia wants to run the football. They gave up 187 rushing yards per game last year. Bad mark. West Virginia ran for 203 yards on the Sooners last year in Morgantown. So that's the only way West Virginia finds a way to hang in there. The last few years, they actually have played the Sooners relatively close. Got that win last year, too. So looking at this, guys, you're sitting here and you realize, holy cow, they're 9-1. The Sooners are 9-1 with 2 games left to go. Could we see Oklahoma finish 11-1, go to the Big 12 championship game, and maybe be a play-in game to the college football playoff? That could be a possibility of getting the Big 12 championship game, but 11-1 is not going to happen. Because I do believe that Oklahoma falls on the road at BYU. This is a huge trap game in Provo, and I believe Oklahoma falls victim to the trap. It is their first ever trip to Provo. First trip out to Utah, and we know how tough of a place that is to play, especially late in the year where it's cold. It is cold, and those fans are going to be showing out, especially a BYU team that could be fighting for bowl eligibility, possibly getting to welcome in a top 10, potentially Oklahoma team. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, and that's going to play a very, very, very big role in BYU's victory over the Sooners. You have that going for them. You have the fact that it's senior day for the Cougars. You have the fact that BYU is extremely physical and loaded in the trenches this year. The fact that their defense should be significantly better. To me, this is all the makings of a major trap game where Oklahoma slips up in a game, or maybe they shouldn't, and I believe they will. BYU pulls off a massive upset near the end of the season, and it potentially ruins Oklahoma's college football playoff hopes. Big 12 title hopes, not so much. Playoff hopes, yes. The Sooners take their second loss of the year before bouncing back on their own senior day, taking down TCU. Talk about a revenge game, losing to TCU 55-24 last year. Dylan Gabriel certainly did get hurt in that game, but still no excuse for Oklahoma giving up 668 yards of offense to the Horned Frogs. But again, being at home, being on senior day, TCU losing as much as they did, I just don't see Oklahoma allowing this game to slip between their fingers unless they're so hungover from the BYU game, and I don't think Venables will allow that, especially with the potential Big 12 title berth on the line. The Sooners beat TCU and finished the year at 10-2. Now, that's a pretty dang good year. You go from 6-7 to 10-2, that's really, really good. And if you're a Sooners fan, you got to be happy with that. That might be good enough to get to that championship game. Might be good enough to get to a Big 12 championship game, and certainly could be good enough if you win that to make a New Year's Six bowl berth. That's a really dang good turnaround. That's a heck of a year, too, for Brent Venables. And I have a feeling this is going to happen, guys. The schedule is there. The talent is there. Oklahoma, to me, was a lot better than their record showed last year, as you could see from those 5 one-possession losses. They're carrying over a little bit of momentum this year. Key transfers play a role. The Sooners are going to be dangerous, guys. And this year, we're going to see the Oklahoma team that we've been so accustomed to seeing in recent years. Last year, it was a fluke. Forget about it. The Sooners are back, baby. They're back in business. 2023 is going to be a big year for them. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and, of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, our Patreon account as well. And make sure to send us some gear. Send us some gear at the address down in the description below. Represent your team in every single Gridiron Expert video as we try to build our GE Nation from coast to coast. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.